Shabbat Shalom and welcome back to the Light to the Nations channel. It is my veraja, my blessing to be here with you again to share with you in this video the part number 4 of the study of the last days, a timeline of the end times. As you know, and in case you have been following the previous videos, we are making progress little by little in order to understand in the proper rhythm the different prophecies of the scriptures regarding the last days, and to avoid any confusion by taking everything at once. So in case you have not watched the previous videos, please stop this one and go start watching in the order that I have been providing these studies, because the overall idea here is to lay the foundations little by little, building the different layers in order to understand all the aspects of the prophecies regarding the last days. So in case you already watched the 3 previous videos, we are going to move forward building with more information the timeline that we already started to build in the part number 3 of this study, including more information from other prophecies using, as I was telling you in the part number 2 of this series, the Ruach of the prophecy, the witness of Yahushua. That's the only way to understand the scriptures and specifically to understand the prophecies of the last days. Like always, my invitation for you, if at the end of this study, at the end of this video, you have questions, you can send me always an email to light2everynation@gmail.com. I'm willing to do my best in order to help you to answer the questions. Send me all the questions you can have. There are no silly questions, they are all the silly answers. So don't be afraid of the question you are going to make. Send all the comments or questions you can have. We can include as part of the study in case they are not included already. Okay, so I'm going to share with you the screen and we are going to start right away with the part number 4 of the study. Let me check the proper slide. So here we are in the part number 4. We will analyze the Sefer Hason chapter 6. This is the book of Revelation chapter 6. And as we know, the book of Revelation is the revelation that Yahushua received, Yahushua HaMashiach received. So it's basically we are going to understand the words of Mashiach in the book of Revelation chapter 6. So let's move on, and we have in the chapter 6 verse 1 to 17. This is the text that we are gonna use. This is the Sefer Hason. This is the book of Revelation chapter 6 verse 1 to 17. Okay, just to remind you that what we are doing in this study, we are not trying to answer the meaning of each one of the prophecies. What we are trying to achieve is to build a timeline with the sequence of the events and the signs that will tell us when those events are going to happen. At the end of this study, most probably we will try to start talking about the meaning of each one of the prophecies in order to have a better understanding. But now what we are trying to do is to build this timeline with the sequence of events. So keep that in mind because it's important, because we will see so many things in the different parts of this study that we will try to understand and get the understanding basically of the real meaning of each one of the prophecies. This is not what we are trying to do now. What we are trying to do first is to understand the sequence of events, because this is quite important to understand again the time and the seasons. And this is related to the calendar of YaHuWaH and is related to the sequence and the chronology of events. Okay? That doesn't mean if you have questions regarding the real meaning of the prophecies, you can send that always to my email, to light2everynation@gmail.com. We will try to answer those questions as well. So Hason, book of Revelation, chapter 6, verse 1 to 17 says the following. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. So what's the entire account that we will read here is basically the scroll that is having 7 seals. And if you read the chapters 5, and we talk about this on the part number 2 of this video about the witness of Yahushua being the Ruachot, the Ruach, the spirit of the prophecy, we saw that nobody was able and worthy to open the seals, to loose the seals and open the scrolls and read the scrolls. And we saw that the only that was worthy to open it was Yahushua. And if we start seeing it here and keeping that in mind, we see exactly the same here when we read the verse 1. It says, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals. Who is opening the seals? Is the Lamb, is Yahushua, the Mashiach. So the only one that can help us to understand or having the understanding of each one of the seals is Yahushua HaMashiach, no one else. And we will see when we check the timeline on this part of the study how this is happening and how Yahushua himself is giving us the answer for each one of the seals. Okay, so let's continue. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures saying, like a sound of a thunder, come and see. And I looked and saw a white horse. So this is the first thing that is happening after Yahushua, the Lamb, opening the seals. So he saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. So again, we are not going to talk about the meaning of this prophecy. Most probably you already heard that most of the people believe that this is the manifestation of the anti-Messiah, the anti-Mashiach. We will see as part of this study, most probably in the part number 7 or 8, that this is not the truth, because we will see directly from the word of YaHuWaH, from the word of YaHuWaH, from the scriptures, that the anti-Messiah, the anti-Mashiach, is not appearing on this moment of the time. We will see it later and we will understand what I'm saying. Okay, so the important thing here is understanding the chronology of events, that the first thing that is happening is the first seal and is the white horse that is coming. Okay, let's continue in the verse 3. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, come and see. And another horse, fiery red, went out. So we see another horse as part of the second seal, and this is a red horse. And it was given to the one who sat on it to take peace from earth. And keep in mind all of this that is in red. What is the work or the purpose of what this person that is sitting on the second horse is going to do? Is going to take peace from earth, and that they should slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. So it's basically what's going to happen at the moment of this seal is going to be opened. It's going to be the manifestation of this red horse, and the person sitting on the horse, riding the horse, is going to take peace from the earth. It's going to provoke wars. It's going to provoke death. That's the whole meaning that we see, and without doing an interpretation here, it's just reading what is written, taking peace from earth, and they should slay one another. Let's continue in the verse 5. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature saying, come and see. And I looked and saw a black horse. Again, this is the third horse, a black one. And he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. This is quite important to understand. We need to understand what is the pair of scales. Okay, I have been telling you that we are not going to go deeper in the meaning of the prophecies. But in this case in particular, we will see what is the meaning, because is something that we need to take in consideration as part of the chronology of events, okay? So he's holding a pair of scales in his hand, and I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, a measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. So it's basically talking about food and money. He's talking about food in the case of wheat and barley, and money in the case of the denarius. The denarius was the money, the monetary system that the Roman Empire was using. Was one of the currencies they were using. Okay, and do not harm the oil and the wine. Okay, we will talk more in details about this, and I will share with you another passages on the scriptures to see how to understand the manifestation of what's going to happen with this third seal. Okay, let's continue in the verse 7. And when he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4 living creatures saying, come and see. And I looked and saw a green horse. So we see again another horse. This is the 4th one, a green one. And he who sat on it had the name Death, and Sheol followed with him. An authority was given to them over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and by the beast of the earth. So we see that what's going to happen at the moment of the manifestation of this 4th horse, at the moment of Yahushua opening the 4th seal, is basically death is coming to the earth, and a 4th part of the earth is going to die. It's going to be killed by the sword. It's going to be die by hunger, by death, or even by the beasts of the earth. This is what is written here. Again, it's not interpretation. We are just reading what the word of YaHuWaH and the revelation of Yahushua in the book of Hasson, Revelation, is telling us. Let's continue in the verse 9. And when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the slaughter place the beings of those having been slain for the word of Elohim and for the witness which they held. Again, we see an important combination here. We see the combination of the word of Elohim and the witness. And I was sharing with you in other places that how the word of YaHuWaH is telling us to go back to the Torah, to the Torah, and to the witnesses. And we see how the witness of Yahushua is throughout the entire scripture. So we can understand here that all the people that have been bringing the word of Elohim and making the stand for the word of Elohim, and the witness that they're bringing about Yahushua, no matter where the time they were living, they are reflected in this part of the chapter. Because I saw under the slaughter place the beings of those having been slain. So we know that all the believers through the history has been suffering because the world has been hating them in the same way that the world hated Yahushua. And even before the first coming of Yahushua, with all the Nevi'im, the prophets, and so on, how the world hated those kind of people because they held and keep the word of Elohim and the witness. Okay, so let's continue. Verse 10. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Master, set apart and true, Kodesh and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? So basically, the entire point over here is that they're asking when is the time of the wrath of YaHuWaH, when he's going to avenge the blood of the Tzaddik, of the just, and he's going to punish the system, the world, because going in another totally and a total opposite direction from the Torah, of YaHuWaH. So let's continue in the verse 11. Let's listen to the answer to the question. And there was given to each one a white robe, And they were told that they should rest a little while longer. So this is quite important. At the moment of the fifth seal, we see that the souls of the slain are asking for vengeance. When is going to happen? The wrath of Elohim. And they are told to wait for a little bit longer. And why they need to wait? And this is the important information on the fifth seal. The key to understand this. Until both the number of their fellow servants and their brothers, who would be killed as they were, was completed. So we see here an important information that as part of the fifth seal, a number of believers, brothers and servants, has to die in order to complete a specific number. And as soon as this number is completed, if we understand the question that we saw before, the wrath of Elohim will come. Okay? So a number of people, believers, needs to be completed. Believers that are going to die needs to be completed. Verse 12, it says the following, "And I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and saw a great earthquake came to be. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the Shemayim fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its unripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind. And the Shemayim departed like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place." So we see what's happening, or what's going to happen at the moment of the sixth seal is open. A great earthquake, and also signs on the luminaries in the Shemayim, with the sun becoming black, the moon becoming blood, and the stars start to fall on the earth. And we see that even this is going to be so strong that even the Shemayim is going to shake. And we saw this in the part number 3, I think. And actually in the part number 1, I think also we talk about this, how strong is going to be this earthquake, that even the Shemayim, something that never happened before, the Shemayim is going to shake. And in the way that it's written over here is quite amazing, because it says that the Shemayim will depart like a scroll. Can you imagine that? And that's why it's so important to understand the cosmology of the earth, the cosmology according to the scriptures, because the only way that this can happen is according to the cosmology that the scripture, that the word of YaHuWaH is teaching us. Okay? So let's continue in the verse 15. "And the sovereigns of the earth, and the great ones, and the rich ones, and the commanders, and the mighty, and every slave and every free one, hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks of the mountains." So they are hiding. All the people on the earth, the rich people, the important people, the sovereigns, the great ones, they are hiding themselves in the caves of the rocks of the mountains. Why is that? Let's continue in the verse 16. "And said to the mountains and rocks," and this is the answer, why they are hiding, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of him sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb." So they are hiding because of YaHuWaH and the Lamb. "Because the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand?" So they know that the wrath and the day of YaHuWaH has come, and that's why they are hiding themselves, because they know that they can do anything about it, because this is written, and this is the promise of YaHuWaH, that he will have a day, the day of his wrath, in order to purify the earth, and in order to bring the everlasting righteousness, the tzedakah, from his word. So they know about it, and that's why they're hiding. So we see in this chapter the 6 seals. The 7th seal we're gonna read it just in a moment, because it's in another chapter of the same book. But we see several things here that is quite important to understand, and they are so important because they are key in order to open our understanding, and again, in order to understand the chronology of events. So What are these keys in order to summarize them? The first one, the key 4.1, thus we see 4 horses. And these 4 horses are 4 creatures of the Shamayim. Those are 4 creatures that are coming from YaHuWaH. So this sounds very nice, right? So how we can confirm this further? We see directly from the Devar of YaHuWaH this information. So just let me open one document because sometimes I don't remember by heart. So let me see. So how we can understand that this is coming directly from YaHuWaH, and this is written in the book of Zechariah. This is the book of Zechariah, Zechariah. This is in the chapter 1. Zechariah, chapter 1. I'm looking at for you to read it for you. So here we are. And this is in the chapter 1, verse 8. Okay? Zechariah, chapter 1, verse 8, and it says the following. I looked at night and saw a man riding on a red horse. We see a red horse here in the same way that we saw it with the seals. Okay? And he was standing among the myrtle trees in the shade. And behind him were horses, red, sorrel, and white. Again, we see different horses here in the same way that we saw in the seals. Verse 9 says, And I said, My master, what are these? And the messenger who was speaking to me said to me, Let me show you what they are. And the man who stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, They are the ones YaHuWaH has sent to go throughout the earth. Let's continue in the verse 11. And they answered the messenger of YaHuWaH who stood among the myrtle trees and said, We have gone throughout the earth and see, all the earth is at peace and rest. I will recommend you to read the entire chapter 1 in context because there are so many important information regarding the last days that is quite important to understand everything that is written here. But we see in the verse 10, chapter 1, verse 10, the answer from the person that was riding the horse, saying, They are the ones YaHuWaH has sent to go throughout the earth. So who is sending these creatures, these horses? Is YaHuWaH. And he's sending us in order to see what's happening on the earth. In the same book, in the chapter 6, in the book of Zechariah, chapter 6, we read exactly the same information. And it reads the following, starting in the verse 1. And I lifted up my eyes again, and looked and saw 4 chariots coming from between 2 mountains. Again, we see 4 chariots in the same way that we see in the book of Jason 4 creatures, or 4 horses. And the mountains were mountains of bronze. With the first chariot were red horses, and with the second chariot black horses, and with the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot strong speckled horses. So I responded and said to the messenger who was speaking to me, What are these, my master? And the messenger answered and said to me, and listen to this carefully, These are the 4 spirits of the Shamayim, coming forth from presenting themselves before the master of all the earth. So the one with this is the verse 6. The one with the black horses is going out to the land of the north, and the white ones have gone out after them, and the speckled ones have gone out to the land of the south. So we see here in the verse 5 the answer that these are 4 spirits, 4 ruachot of the Shamayim, coming forth from the presenting themselves before the master of all the earth. So just looking into the Devar of YaHuWaH, and let me put my camera here just for a moment. we see from the Devar of YaHuWaH that these four horses are four spirits from the Shamayim, are four spirits that they present with some kind of frequency before YaHuWaH's Elohim Sebaot. So these four horses are coming directly from YaHuWaH in order to go throughout the earth and to bring this judgment from YaHuWaH. Okay, so let's continue. This is the verse, the first key, the key 4.1. And this is amazing, you know, just reading the Devar of YaHuWaH, we can have the answers. So next things to talk about this, and this I already mentioned it to you, this is an important information, that the white horse is not the manifestation of the beast, it's not the manifestation of the anti-Messiah or the false Mashiach. I'm not going to explain you now why. We will see it in the next videos, in the next part of this study, because why I'm saying this, because the white horse is not coming in the same moment that we see in the other witness of the scriptures that the first beast is appearing. These two events are happening in two different moments of time. So that's why the first beast, the first horse, the white horse, is not the manifestation of the first beast. We will see it more clearly as soon as we move forward with the study. Okay? So the next thing is very important, and because this is also a kind of sign that the fourth horse, this is in the fourth seal, is basically is gonna bring death to the earth, and 25% is the fourth of the earth will die, and this is around, based on the current numbers of the population of the earth, of the world, is around 1.5 million of people that are gonna die. So it's going to be such an event. And you know, it could be related to weapons of mass destruction or maybe other things. I don't know. That in our days it's quite possible for this amount of people to die. So I want you to keep that in mind, because those are things that we are gonna be able to see, because this is happening, and we will see it in the timeline during the pains of the woman that is ready to give birth. So this is something that even is happening, and we will see it very soon in the timeline before the great distress. So we will be able to see all of this. Okay, around 1.5 million of people dying. And we saw in these four seals, and let me read it for you again, that the dead that was the rider of this horse is gonna bring this death in four different ways. Okay, and we see it. This is in the verse 8, chapter 6, verse 8, and it says, "And authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with what? With the sword," could be war, "with hunger," this is lack of food, "with death," different kind of deaths, "and by the beasts of the earth." So it's basically, he's bringing these four judgments. And what you see in the slide here is that these judgments are coming from YaHuWaH. And how we can confirm this directly from the scriptures? Again, I have been telling you, we need to find all the answers here. And there is an amazing parallel to this topic, and this we find it in the book of, let me see it, in the book of Ezekiel, Yehezkel chapter 14, verse 21. So if you have your scriptures with you, go with me to the book of Ezekiel. This is Yehezkel chapter 14, verse 21. So it says the following: "For thus said the Master YaHuWaH, how much more it shall be when I send my four evil judgments on Jerusalem." So it's YaHuWaH speaking through Yehezkel the Navi, And he's saying the following: when I'm sending my 4 evil judgment on Jerusalem. And let's check what are the judgments: the sword, the scarcity of food, and evil beasts and pestilence, to cut off man and beast from it. So it's exactly the same thing that we see in Jason. We see exactly the same 4 judgments: sword, scarcity of food, evil beast, and pestilence. So we see directly from the word of YaHuWaH that these 4 judgments that are coming through the 4th seal, the 4 horse, are judgment from YaHuWaH. Okay, so let's continue. The key 4.2 is the 5th seal. And again, this is talking about the word of Elohim and the witness. And this is quite important to keep it in mind, because we will see this repeated and repeated all over during the prophecies about the word of Elohim and the witness, especially related to the 5th seal. It's important for you to keep it in mind. Again, this is the 2nd key. The 3rd key is also related to the 5th seal, and is talking about that the number of chosen ones that will die needs to be completed. So we need to understand that this number, people will die, people related to the chosen one, believers that are having the word of Elohim and the witness as well, as we already read in the chapter, are going to die because a number has to be completed. And after the number is completed, just in that moment, the wrath of Elohim will come. So important key to keep in mind, because we will see it in the next part of the study, how these keys are connecting the dots or connecting each other in order to reveal to us the full picture and the big picture of the prophecy of the last days. So let me, because I have an issue here with the presentation, let me open all of that for you. So the key number 4 is a sign, and this is related to the great earthquake. A great earthquake that is going to happen in all the earth simultaneously, and it's going to be so big, it's going to be so terrible that even the mountains and the island they are going to move out of its place. So keep that in mind. We have been seeing how the earthquakes are increasing and increasing in the last few years. So this is going to be a so huge and massive earthquake that the entire world is going to move. And we will see maybe later in this study how we have other evidences and other witnesses that are confirming this word in the same word of YaHuWaH in the book of the Yeshayahu, if I'm not wrong. We see about this great earthquake that is coming to the earth. The key number 5 is also a sign, and this is important to keep in mind, because we are talking about darkness of the sun, the moon as a blood, and we know this is a total lunar eclipse, and a star falling on the earth. And here we see again a connection with a key we already saw, and this is quite important because it's something that we will see, the connection in the timeline. And what is the key 3.3? Let me show it to you quite fast. And that's why my invitation for you is that you should take notes of all of this, especially about the keys. So the key 3.3 is this one, and we saw it when we were talking about the prophecy at the Mount of Olives. This is something that Yahushua talked about it. It was a sign, the darkness of the sun, the moon, and the stars. So we see again 2 keys in different book of and different prophecies on the scriptures that are connected directly. So there's one point that I'm still studying, and because even we see the connection, Yahushua is saying on the book of Matthew, in the prophecy of the Mount of Olives, he's talking about the moon that is going to get dark. Okay, but here in Revelation we see that the moon as blood. So I'm still studying why we have this difference between the 2 prophecies. Okay, as soon as I have an answer for that, I will share this with you. And the key number 4.6 is basically related to the day of YaHuWaH, the day of his wrath. Okay, and we see this in the words of the people that are hiding on the caves and the mountains. We see them declaring the day of YaHuWaH coming to the earth. So let's move on and let's start building again the timeline of the end times. So in the last part, in the part number 3, we already saw and built this part using the witness on the prophecy at the Mount of Olives, the witness of Yahushua. So we are going to see how Yahushua is the one losing the seals, is the one revealing to us how to understand the prophecies. And we will see the amazing connection of these seals that are happening in the Shamayim with events that are going to happen on the earth. So we see the first seal, okay, that is being opened, and what's happening is this white horse with this rider that is coming with this crown, and in order to conquer and overcome. And if we see the sequence of events, Yahushua in the book of Yahu in the chapter 24 is giving us all the answers, how to understand all of this. And the first thing, if you remember, we saw in Yahu 24 by verse 5, he's saying to us that the first thing that will happen is the false prophets, people saying that he's the Messiah, and this is something that we have been seeing throughout the entire history. I have my point on my own understanding on this, but I prefer not to share it now because I prefer to prepare the material in order to provide you more insight on this. So I'm reading the Yahu chapter 24, 5. It says the following: "For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they shall lead many astray." So basically, he's talking about a counterfeit movement that is going to lead many astray and not in the way of YaHuWaH. This is what Yahushua is saying, that people will come saying, I am the Messiah, and they are going to lead many astray. So we see this is the manifestation of the first seals if we interpret Hason, being the revelation of Yahushua, with the words of Yahushua that he told us in the book of Yahu. So we will see more evidence of this in the second seal. So we read in the second seal, in the verse 6, in the chapter 6, verse 3 and 4, it says the following: "And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, Come and see. And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was given to the one who sat on it to take peace from earth, and that they should slay one another." And we see here, when we were studying the words of Yahushua in the Mount of Olives, he was saying the second thing to happen is to see fightings and reports of fightings. But he also said that the end has not yet come. So we see how this is in complete alignment with what we see with the second seal, because the rider of the second horse has the authority to take peace from earth. So in order to people to slay each other. And we see here how the peace is taken from the earth with wars, with fightings, with reports of fightings. Okay? Let's continue. The third seal, and this is important because this is not 100% attached to something that we already read in Yahu 24. So this is in the verse 5 and 6 of the chapter 6 of the book of Hason. And it says the following. This is talking about the black horse. And it says, "And he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, A measure of wheat for a denarius, and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." So how we can understand this, we can have several interpretations, but let's look in the book of Melachim Bet. This is a 2 King. Melachim Bet, 2 King, chapter 7. Because here we have the answer directly from the word of YaHuWaH. So this is Melechim Bet, 2 Kings, chapter 7. Okay, let me read for you from verse 1 to verse 4. And it says the following. And Elisha, the prophet Elisha, said, hear the word of YaHuWaH, thus said YaHuWaH. About this time tomorrow, a seah of fine flour for a shekel, and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Shomeron. So we see it's not exactly the same thing that is written in Chazon, but exactly the same components. It's talking about measuring food per money. In this case, it's talking about a seah of fine flour for a shekel and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Shomeron. So we see exactly the same pattern. Let's continue in the verse 2. And an officer of whose hand the sovereign leaned answered the man of Elohim and said, look, if YaHuWaH is making windows in the Shamayim, shall this word come true? And he said, look, you are about to see it with your eyes, but not eat of it. They are talking about food. Again, read the chapter before, the chapter 6, and you will have the entire context. Let's continue in the 3, verse 3. And there were 4 leprous men at the entrance of the gate, and they said to each other, why are we sitting here until we are dead? And listen carefully this in the verse 4. If we shall say, let us go into the city, the scarcity of food is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we shall die. Now come, let us surrender to the army of the Arameans. If they keep us alive, we live, and if they kill us, we shall die. So here in the words of the lepers, they are telling us some important information. They are talking that there is scarcity of food in the city. So what we see here in the verse 1, when the people of the message or the instruction is to measure the flour or the food, the flour and the barley with a shekel, is related to the scarcity of food that was in the city at that time, that the food was measuring in quantities. Okay? And it's exactly the same pattern that we see in the book of Chazon, with the instruction to the rider of the black horse to measure the wheat for a denarius and 3 measures of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. So, and this is my interpretation, and I want you to understand this is my interpretation of this. I can be wrong, so it's important for you to receive the input, but do your own research. When I see this, for me, it's talking about a potential economic collapse. Because if the food is being measured in quantities, this is because there's no abundance as we have nowadays, because the food needs to be measured in order to have enough food for everyone. So in our current system, that we are so dependent on the economy, if we have a collapse, perfectly we can get to this scenario that we are not going to have so much abundance. The food is not going to be enough. So it could be that this can be the interpretation of the third seal, and a potential economic collapse, that everything is going to be measured, everything is going to it's going to be lack of money, it's going to be these kind of problems. And the interesting thing that we know what happened in 2008 with the economic collapse, and how afraid are all the people about a potential crisis that should happen 2 years ago or last year, that they are talking, and the experts are talking, that this bubble is increasing and increasing, and potentially this can blow up in any moment, and this will create a complete disaster in the way that we live. So I want you to keep in mind, again, this is my interpretation for the third seal. It's something for you to consider. Okay, let's continue. So we see the fourth seal being open, and we see the important interpretation and the important understanding that the same Yahushua is given to us about the fourth seal in his own words in the Mount of Olives. So we see in the fourth seal in the verse 7 and 8 of the chapter 6, it says the following in the verse 8. And I looked and saw a pale horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death and Sheol following him, and the authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, and with the fourth, basically the fourth judgment of YaHuWaH. And we see the amazing connection and harmony about this seal and the potential third world war. And why I put this, if you remember, as a question mark, because what Yahushua told us in Matthew 24, let me read it for you again. It says the following: For nation shall rise against nation, and reign against reign, and there shall be scarcity of food, and deadly diseases, and earthquakes in places. So we see that, we see nations against nation, we see pestilences, we see earthquakes, and so on. All of this is creating death, and we see that the purpose of the forerider of this horse is to kill 25% of the population. So we see how this is connected directly with what Yahushua said that will happen, nations against nations, that this could be a potential World War III or World War III, and scarcity of food and so on. So important to understand this directly from the word of Yahushua. So the next one is the fifth seal. And you know, when we're talking about that a number of believers has to die in order to complete this number, we are talking about directly tribulation. Okay? And because it's following the same sequence that Yahushua is telling us in the book of Matthew, that's the important point that I want you to see. What we see in the seals are exactly the same sequence that we see in the book of Matthew. And that's why it's so important to understand that is that Yahushua, the only one that can open the seals and give us the proper interpretation, the proper understanding. And we see that he's amazingly doing it by reading side by side the chapter 6 of the book of Revelation and the chapter 24 of the book of Matthew. So we see that in Matthew he said that after nation rising against nation, he said in the verse 8, and all these are the beginning of the birth pains. And after that he said, then they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And we see in the fifth seal the following. This is in the verse 9 to 11. They said, and they cried in the verse 10, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, Master, set apart and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And there was given to each one a white robe, and they were told that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brothers who would be killed as they were was completed. So we see that a number of people, believers, having the word of Elohim and the witness has to die. And this is exactly the same that Yahushua is telling us, that they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you. So this is basically in this moment, at the moment that in the Shemaim, Yahushua is opening the fifth seal, is the moment when the Great Tribulation is starting, when Yahushua is saying that people are gonna die because having the word of Elohim and the witness. So then we have the sixth seal, and also we see the amazing connection with the words of Yahushua. And I was giving you the keys, the important keys that we saw in the previous slide. We see in the chapter, verse 12 to 14, in chapter 6 in Chasson, in Revelation. It says, when he opened the sixth seal, he saw a great earthquake. The sun became black, and the moon became blood, and the star falling to the earth. So, and if we see as we saw in Matthew 24 and 29, it was exactly the same thing that Yahushua was telling us. The sun and the moon becoming dark, the stars falling on the earth, and even the Shamayim shaking. And we see exactly the same thing in the verse 14 in Revelation 6. It says, and in heaven Shamayim departed like a scroll being rolled up. It's exactly the same we see that Yahushua told us that the Shamayim will shaken. So, but something else is happening on the earth, and this is something in addition that Yahushua is telling us in the book of Revelation chapter 6. And what is this? A great earthquake happening on this moment. And also in this moment we see the rich and the mighty ones, the great ones, hiding themselves in the caves and declaring the coming of the day of YaHuWaH. So this is the moment, even from the people of the earth, that they are declaring the day of YaHuWaH will start. So then we see the seventh seal, and we didn't read this, so we are gonna go to the chapter 8 of the book of Revelation from verse 1 to 5. Sefer Hason, book of Revelation, chapter 8, verse 1 to 5. It says the following: and when he opened the seventh seal, there came to be silence in the Shamayim for about half an hour. So we will see something. I didn't put here on the timeline that something will happen on the Shamayim, will be silence for half an hour. And I saw the seven messengers who stand before Elohim, and to them were given seven trumpets. And another messenger came and stood at the slaughter place holding a golden censer, and much incense was given to him, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the Kodeshim upon the golden slaughter place which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the Kodeshim went up before Elohim from the hand of the messenger. And the messenger took the censer and filled it with the fire from the slaughter place, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises and thunders and lightnings and an earthquake. So we see that after the seventh seal is open, we see that the next judgment, the next phase of the prophecies is coming with the seven trumpets. This is what is written over there. And we see that during this moment is when YaHuWaH is gonna receive this offering of the prayers of the Kodeshim, and the messenger is gonna take the fire of the slaughter place and he's gonna throw it to the earth. And what's gonna happen on the earth in this moment? Thunders, noises, and an additional earthquake. So this is what's gonna happen. So after this, we see that basically it's in this moment when the day of YaHuWaH is starting. Okay? So again, we are using the Devar of YaHuWaH to understand the different accounts of the prophecies. And we see how the witness of Yahushua that is given to us in the book of Revelation is in total alignment with his word and his witness in the book of Matthew 24. And we can see how different events are going to happen in the Shamayim, and how these events that are happening in the Shamayim are connected in harmony with events that are going to happen on the earth. And the important thing is that we can understand from this timeline so far that the day of YaHuWaH is starting just in this moment. After the sixth seal, we see the sign on the Shamayim, on the luminaries, and the seventh seal, and an additional earthquake, and even the people hiding themselves from the wrath of YaHuWaH, declaring that in this moment is when the day of YaHuWaH will start. Okay? We will need to synchronize for sure later when the sign of the Ben Adam, when the harvest is going to happen. But the important thing is that we can see clearly now by just reading the Devar of YaHuWaH that what is the sequence of events on these two witnesses we have from Yahushua. So I hope you enjoyed the video. One important thing that you need to keep in mind: the book of Revelation, the book of Hason, is not written in chronology. We will see this throughout the study, that we need to pick some information in some chapter of the book of Jason that not necessarily are at the beginning, but we will see, for example, in the chapter 12 and the chapter 14 that there are important information that are related to the beginning of the sequence of events, are not to the end. So you will be able to see it as soon as we make progress with the timeline, how this work, because the book of Revelation is important, as I'm telling you, to understand that it's not in chronology, and that's why it's important to see what are the different revelations we see over there that will help us to understand the sequence of events that we're building in this timeline. So that's it for this part. Important information. We are building this timeline step by step. So in case you have any question, as I told you, send me your question. I will be helping you to find the answers. And also we will see more and more information in the coming part of this study, especially because in the next part we will start talking about the analysis of the Great Distress, the part number 1 of 5 parts, if I'm not wrong. So we will start building the detailed events during this timeline that we are building. So thank you for watching the video. Again, listen to my words, take notes, and do your own research. Use this input. I'm not trying to teach you. I'm just sharing with you the information that I have been able to understand. So in order to be for your benefit, for your own studies. And let's pray together to YaHuWaH to help us in these last days, in order to understand the time and the seasons, in order to understand the sequence of events and the signs. So again, thank you for watching the video. Shalom to all of you, and see you in the next one.